I'm off on another adventure again. This time I am in the little community of Big Pool, Maryland, at the western terminus of the Western Maryland Rail Trip. Now, like the trail down at Farmville a couple weeks ago, this is also a repurposed railroad line. It runs 27 miles from here to Hancock, Maryland, to a little community called Little Orleans, and a little bit past that. It, of course, follows an old railroad line for the Western Maryland Railroad. It also parallels the historic C&O Canal and the Potomac River. Unlike the last one, a lot more to see on this one. It's not just a tunnel of trees the whole way and the occasional bridge. There's more to see here. There's historic ruins. There's all kinds of good stuff. Over and out. I love the smell of fresh country air. This is the time of the year when the farmers start spreading their cow tea on their fields in anticipation of planting corn or alfalfa or whatever it is they grow around here, mostly corn. And there's a certain aroma in the air that, having grown up in farm country earlier on, I'm kind of used to it. Doesn't upset me too much. But we're just about a mile into the first leg here. Actually, there is only one leg. The leg just happens to be 27 miles long. Okay, here we are in the first landmark of the trail, just about 3 miles from the start. This is one of the aqueducts for the old Chesapeake and Ohio Canal. I'm not sure which creek we are crossing over here, but in the distance you can see the Potomac River, which is what the creek eventually falls into. The entire C&O Canal runs from Washington, D.C. all the way to Cumberland, Maryland. Its original intent was to go all the way to the Ohio River, which is why it's called the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal. But by the time it made it as far west as Cumberland, the railroads had started to take over and pretty much rendering canal transportation to the west obsolete, though it still did remain in use until the early 1920s. We'll see some more close-ups of the canal here later on in this video. That noise you hear in the background is the traffic out on Interstate 70. Right now I am running parallel to Interstate 70 about 30 feet away. So it takes a little bit of the outdoors experience away. Civilization rearing its ugly head as usual. But we'll continue to soldier on here. Here we are at the second landmark of the trip. We have an old cemetery here. The tombstone suggests that it dates like the 1700s. I can't quite make them out because they're very, very weathered. Here we have somebody named, last name seems to be Snyder. I can't tell what the rest of it says. Nor can I see any. 1731, I think is the date. That's going back a ways. Again, none of the inscriptions are really discernible. Some appear to have sunk all the way into the ground, or maybe those were just stones they pulled out of the woods to mark the grave and didn't add any more to it. Smaller graves over here suggest that they might have been children. Who knows? Walking back, more rough stone markers. No real indication who they are. Now this one here on the right's got something written on it, but again, you can't really make out what it says. There's one down there, in there. And then this one here. Let's see what we got back here. Sarah, wife of, who knows? More old stones, not readable. Too bad. I guess this one little one here looks like it has the remnants of a little carved lamb on top of it. Stones with lambs were usually used to mark where children are buried. That might be what this is. There's another simple stone, not readable, and another marker here. So rest in peace to all these good people. I guess only God knows who they are now. We'll continue. Doggies! Right here is about the first place you can really get a decent view of the canal. Some of the canal has been restored to its former glory. This part has not. Over here, this body of water you see in front of the fishermen is an area called Little Pool. Now where we started, we passed by Big Pool, which we really couldn't see on account of the trees, but Little Pool was like a small pond or a lake in the canal, sort of a parking lot for the canal boats where they could R&R or pass each other or whatever it is they needed to do. This poor fellow's going to carry his pontoon boat all the way up these steps. Well, good luck to him. Let's continue. And here through the trees you can see a big slackwater area of the Potomac River. There were several spots along the canal where the river was just flat and deep that they actually detoured the canal to actually go through the river. And the C&O bike path, which is down over the hill from this, in some sections they built basically concrete right-of-ways right alongside the river for people to bike on. I'm not sure if this is one of those spots or not, but this is the mighty Potomac. Well, not so much mighty now. Wait till it gets to Washington. Then it'll be mighty. Okay, looks like we're finally coming up on Hancock. 10 miles in. So far the trail's been very smooth. Unlike some rail trails that are made out of crushed gravel or crushed limestone, this one is paved with asphalt the whole way. Let's take a little detour down here and take a look at the canal. Okay, we are now in Hancock. Here is a restored section of the C&O Canal. Probably what it looked like back in its heyday. On the opposite side, we can see the gentleman walking there. That's the tow path where the mules would walk, towing the canal barges up and down the waterway. It's now the C&O Canal Trail. C&O Canal Trail, as mentioned earlier, it runs 180 miles from Cumberland to Washington, D.C. And it's a great trail, but not really suitable for my bike. It's pretty much whatever Mother Nature gives you. Anything from crushed gravel to packed dirt to good old-fashioned mud. Probably not my cup of tea. But we'll continue on this trail for now. Mother Nature speed bumps. Okay, here at the 14-mile mark, you see the ruins of the old round top hydraulic cement company. It was a cement factory that operated from 1863 to about 1909. The mill was powered by a 16-foot water wheel and 8 coal-fired kilns. Produced about 2,200 barrels of hydraulic cement per week. Raw material for the mill was mined from the adjacent limestone caves. This whole area is surrounded by limestone. Cement from this mine was transported by canal boat or by railroad and was used for famous projects such as the Washington Monument and the U.S. Capitol building. The mill was closed due to the introduction of a new variety of slower drying cement when this type of cement was no longer the kind they wanted to use. Hikers with a dog. Of course, the C&O Canal towpath down there and the mighty Potomac behind it. We'll sign off for now until something interesting else comes along. Now that is a big rock. It obviously fell from higher up. Looks like fairly recent too, judging from the damage it left to the trail. Need to put it in three-wheel drive right now. Oh wait, I don't have three-wheel drive. Soldier on. Now, not to be confused with the Round Top Cement Company, this is the remains of the Round Top Sand Company. Now, this particular sand was Oriskany sandstone. Sedimentary rock formation yielded a very fine white sand that was suitable for making glass. So this wasn't necessarily the kind of sand that went into making cement. It was the kind of sand that they melted down to make into glass. The whole thing extended down about, I don't know, 66 feet below or so. 6-foot high diameter pipes. And the cable system, the slurry sand and water, was pumped up through the pipes to a large storage tank. Then it was transferred onto the storage tank into railroad cars. It's located on a siding, which I presume was right around here. But there doesn't seem to be any trace of it now. All right, we'll continue. And here alongside of the trail we have an old radio shack. No, not that kind of radio shack. This is where the men who worked on the railroads would keep radio equipment. They could talk to the trains and talk up and down the line and keep control of things. Not much to see here. Thought it might be an outhouse at first, but no, not. Continuing on. And down here off to the side you can see one of the locks from the original canal. This is either lock number 54 or 55. I'm not quite sure which one. I'll have to look that up and caption it. But it was a number of locks along the canal. I'm not sure how high up the numbers went, but they certainly went higher than 55. See somebody on the tow, a little kid over there, looks like on the tow path. Okay, you can't really see it through the trees over here, but you can see in front of us we have another one of the canal locks. This was a lock along dam number 6 on the Potomac River. Now, in order for a canal to work, it has to have a water source higher in elevation than the canal itself. And so a series of dams were built along the Potomac River to make sure there was higher elevation water than where the canal was. Now, this dam was constructed originally around 1839 or so, and it was destroyed many times over in various floods over the years. And finally there was spring flood of 1936 and the flood of 1942 reduced it to pretty much the rubble it is today, which we cannot see because it's all through the trees. I'll see if I can find a picture and insert it here to give you an idea of what we're talking about. Now over here on the right side of the canal, opposite the river, we have the foundation of what was once called the Woodmont School. It was an old one-room schoolhouse built in 1875, and the construction cost was a whopping $307. It had a wood stove to keep it warm, but if you needed water, you had to walk a quarter-mile away to a spring and bring it back. School days, good old root and wool days. Now here we have the Sidling Hill Aqueduct, which is also a lock over top of the Sidling Hill Creek. Really fancy piece of engineering for the 1830s, wouldn't you say? And the Potomac out there. Sidling Hill is a big mountain that goes more or less north or south right through this part of the country. And Sidling Hill is either named after the creek or named after the mountain or just the location or something, I don't know. But that's where we are now. We got roughly 5 miles to the very end of the trail, and then we're gonna see what we can see there, turn around and start our journey back. As you can see, the C&O Canal was rerouted down through the aqueduct itself. I guess on the side there is a little too steep, a little too dangerous to try to take your bike along. So it goes through the old lock and then back up the other side. We have a falling rock sign for the illiterate people. It doesn't say falling rock, it shows a picture of some falling rocks. Okay, now this is part of the trail that I was not looking forward to. Short distance up ahead here you have the Indigo Tunnel. It was, of course, a railroad tunnel back in the railroad heyday. Trouble is, it's closed. You cannot bike through it, you can't even walk through it. It seems there are several species of endangered bats living inside the tunnel. And for that reason, the state has closed the tunnel and you cannot go through it unless these poor little bats die. So here we get diverted down to our neighbor on the C&O Canal trail towpath. We got to travel about 2 miles or so on the C&O, and then we can get back on the Western Maryland Trail again. You get what you never know what you're going to find on the C&O. It might be fairly dry, it might be wet, it might be who knows. So if it's not too muddy, I'm going to try to soldier on through. If it gets too muddy, I'm going to have to abandon the trip and turn around and go back. But we'll see. Now we are on the C&O Canal Trail, C&O Canal towpath, which parallels the canal, which is now on our right. We got to go about 2 miles of this, and then we can get back on the Western Maryland paved trail. So far, not too bad. Feels a little bit like the High Bridge Trail I did a couple of weeks ago. I think I can survive this for 2 miles. Passing Lock 57. Finally coming to the end of the C&O Canal segment of this trip. I'm going to get back on the main trail right now. Thank you. Wide load.
Have a good day.
Me too.
You know it.
All right. This is the west end of the Indigo Tunnel. As mentioned previously, there's a number of endangered bat species living in this tunnel. And it is for that reason that the tunnel is closed to the public and you're not allowed to ride through it. Which would have been kind of cool though, wouldn't it? See what we have here. It's only about 50 feet or so off the main trail, so it's an easy walk. Feel that cool air. Well, you can't, but a lot of cool air coming off that out of this tunnel. You said trying to not to step in any mud like we did just then. Sorry. Yeah, that's it, all right. Now turn around and try to get out of here without mudding up my shoes even worse. Well, I guess I had to have a couple casualties on this trip. It'll dry. Heading back to the bike. Trike. Well, my main camera died, so I'm going to have to use my handheld for the last mile or so of this trip. This is obviously also a tunnel. It carries the old Little Orleans Road over top of us. I think this was at one time an actual railroad tunnel. And here we are coming up to the end of the Western Maryland Rail Trail. It stops. I mean, it just literally stops right here. There's a dilapidated railroad bridge ahead of us here that crosses the river into West Virginia, but you're not supposed to go out there, which I may do anyhow. We'll see. Yeah, that bridge needs a lot of rehab if they're going to extend the trail any farther than this. Across the river there is West Virginia, and you can see the C&O path down there. So we've kind of hit it perpendicularly here. I don't know, but that's as far as she goes. Traveled almost exactly 30 miles to get here. Now it's time to turn around and go back. And I'm going to stop recording at this point, unless I see something really, really spectacular that I have to stop and film again. My main camera is out of battery, and my second camera, which I don't use as often, of course, is running down as well. I got about half a battery left in it. I don't know. Anyways, thanks to the tactical cub getting me this far safely. Now it's time to turn around and head back. The last half of this trail was a little bit uphill, so I'm hoping I can take advantage of that downhill going back. I've used up nearly all of my main battery. I'll switch over to the secondary battery here a little bit. If that one got me 30 miles, the other one should at least get me back. Off we go. This is the Tactical Panda, signing off.